And our last chapter for the night is chapter 3. We're just again going to take a quick look at the court system in the United States. Now, much of this, again, just by being members of the community, you're familiar with how the U.S. court system operates. So, generally speaking, if we're in court, our first stop are the trial judges. And so depending on the dollar amount in controversy and the nature of the players, you're either going to be in federal court or state court. And either way, your first stop is going to be a trial judge. Again, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, if you're not happy with the outcome, then you can certainly bring a case to the appellate court, and if you're not happy with the outcome, you can go to the Supreme Court, either state Supreme Court or the federal Supreme Court. Many of the cases that people don't realize is the cases that go before the United States Supreme Court many times are 6, 8, 10 years old from the path from a trial to the Supreme Court. And obviously, there's a lot of justice not rendered because people have been in the system so long. By the time they get through the Supreme Court, it's pretty much a non-event because they've had to live their lives in the meantime. So litigation in general is not the best way to do business for any of us. So if you hear the term judges, that usually applies to the trial courts and the lower level appellate courts. We usually save the term justices for the United States Supreme Court and for the highest courts of the various states. We usually use odd numbers so that when they take a vote, if they can't unanimously agree, there's still a winning side. I am not a big fan of the jury system. The jury system, unfortunately, has kind of fallen apart in the United States. Part of it is that a lot of us work a lot of hours and are unavailable to the jury system. So the jury system tends to be a system of people who are unemployed or underemployed, or elderly people have a little extra time on their hands. It's not the A team out there making the decision. So many executives, if they were being confronted with a legal issue, would choose to have a judge hear the case instead of a jury because they'd be concerned the jury would be prejudiced against that particular business. But it is an interesting situation. A grand jury meets in private. In fact, it's so private, if you're called before a grand jury, you cannot have your attorney in the room with you. One of the big scandals that has happened over the last few years are leaks from grand juries, where people who participate in the grand jury process, if they think they can get a political advantage, release information that was supposedly collected in private. This is a very serious problem. And I'm not sure why grand juries need to meet in private, but in any event, the grand jury hears a case and says, yeah, we think this person is a bad person, then there can be an indictment. Juries can be 6 jurors or 12 jurors. It's not really that critical. Usually for the big cases and death cases, they're going to have 12 people. And for a capital punishment in the United States, usually you need to have a unanimous court jury award. So again, as we mentioned, the state and the federal court systems run parallel to each other. One of the things that's important is to understand the jurisdiction of the case is whether the courts have the power to hear a case. And generally speaking, here in Texas, we have tiers. Many of you are familiar with the fact that Texas has a justice of the peace system. Justice of the peace can also be called small claims court. So here in Harris County, where I'm sitting, a justice of the peace can hear cases all the way up to $15,000. So the justice of the peace can hear fairly high cases. Now, from $15,000 to $100,000, we have a county court system. And then if the case is over $100,000, you can have a decision heard by the district courts, the state district court. So we have 3 levels of trial courts here in Texas, depending on the amount of money in controversy. Now, in contrast, the federal government limits its jurisdiction to 2 types of cases. A case involving a federal question. That could be bankruptcy, it could be admiralty law, it could be a situation where people are they're in different states. But if they're in different states, that's called diversity jurisdiction. There needs to be $75,000 in controversy for them to get to the federal courts. And there's your diversity of citizenship slide. That's slide S11 for chapter 3. That's important to know. Again, if it's a federal question, there's no minimum dollar amount. One of the things that comes up, because we do business all over the United States today with all our different online businesses and shipping things. And so the question becomes, where can a business be sued? A business can be sued any place that it does business in any significant manner. And this means that, you may be sitting in California and running a high-tech company and doing business all over the country, and somebody's unhappy with you in Virginia. That court in Virginia may be able to get control of your case and say, you need to come from California to Virginia to protect yourself. So that's not a welcome sign when you hear that, hey, you've been sued in another state. That's not your best day, but just so you're aware, that's a possibility. So one of the other terms that we want you to be familiar with as we get close to wrapping up for tonight is the distinction between law and equity. And this again goes back to the early days of the British legal system, almost 500 years ago. And the Brits had 2 different legal systems. They had a law system and an equity system. So if you were a farmer and you said the farmer down the road stole your cow, and you wanted the cow back or you wanted the money for the cow, you would go to a court of law. I want money, I want my cow. But if you wanted a order of the court to say, do not steal my cow again, that's called an injunction, and an injunction is an equitable remedy. So that in most states in the United States, following Britain's decision, we have combined the courts of law and equity. So you can go to one judge and you can say, I want money damages and I want to be protected from this person doing bad things in the future. So that's a combination of law and equity. Now it says there's usually no right to trial by jury. Here in Texas, you can have a trial by jury for a traffic ticket. Not every state will let you have a jury trial for a traffic ticket. You usually can't afford to do that because it's very hard to do without a lawyer. And most of us, it's cheaper to pay the traffic ticket than it is to hire a lawyer to fight the traffic ticket or perhaps plead your case to the jury. So if the court tells you to do something and you don't do it, then you can go to jail. A good example of this is if you got divorced and you were ordered to pay child support or spousal support after the divorce, if you do not do that, then you can indeed be put in jail. Not very many people are put in jail, but it's just theoretically possible.